Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Glad to be here. Once again, I opened our sparkling waters before we started the episode. I was just so eager to get going and I completely forgot. So yet another episode that you are going to have to not have a sparkling water ASMR session.
You know what we could do?
What?
We could tap the little tops.
Tap the tops?
Yeah, together. Let me say. Ding.
Oh, yeah, okay. We could try that real quick.
Okay. Let me get my drink real quick.
Okay.
Do you want to do it on yours?
Ready?
And there you go.
Yeah.
ASMR.
All right, let me try this. Let me try this. Did you hear that?
No, but I heard that burp.
Let me run it back. You ready?
Oh my
listen.
gosh.
How about that?
I did hear that, yes.
I feel like, I don't know. Anyways, welcome back to the episode, guys. Today's episode, as we mentioned in the last one, we're going to be going over mental health. Not like the real nitty gritty of it, but kind of our experience with it. And to be more specific, the mental health decline of college students. And we have a couple articles that Marisol found that we're going to be kind of going over, giving our thoughts, opinions on it, and just kind of what could be these possible causes from our own experience, as well as pulling from these articles' experiences as well.
Yeah, I know for the causes, one of them was we don't really know what's causing this decline.
Yeah.
They mentioned social media as a catalyst.
Or COVID-19.
Yes. So there's just a bunch of factors. Also ethnicity and background, family background. So there's just a lot of things that you have to pull in, which is why we're mainly going to be going over our experiences. Because I feel obviously we know more about that rather than just everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely resonated with a lot of the stuff. Oh my gosh, excuse me. I drank so much of the sparkling water for that little sound. Yeah, I definitely resonated with a lot of what was said in those two articles. I was relating to it because I've felt that way, at many times. And I guess in some ways, I still feel certain types of ways about things that maybe don't cause this crazy decline on my mental health, but it definitely has an effect on my way of thinking. I might not be as positive about myself, or my attitude towards things may not be as positive as it probably could be. And, I'll definitely delve into it as we get further into this episode. But I don't know, I guess to start out, what really sprung the idea for this episode? Because last episode we talked about
Well, I think it's the one before.
Yeah, the
this last
episode before last, we talked about the end of the semester and about kind of how we were feeling and how it felt almost overloaded. This semester we took on more than we ever had in previous college semesters. It was kind of starting to feel kind of like how we were in high school, right? Having multiple things going on at once rather than just classes.
I definitely feel like it was high school.
Yeah. In that regard, and I wasn't used to having so much on my plate again.
Yeah, I definitely feel I was overwhelmed because of, I know I mentioned this before, time commitment kind of freaks me out, especially when it's for long periods. So my mock trial meeting was 2 hours or 1.5.
Yeah.
And knowing that was just going to increase freaked me out and overwhelmed me. But I think just school in general is what stresses me out the most.
No, I definitely agree. Yeah, because honestly, I agree. Like having more time commitment is what can cause me to get stressed out, but it also causes me to want to work harder because now I feel like I have a lot of these responsibilities that I need to take care of. But the biggest thing that I think was causing me to have anxiety or stress were my classes. And it's not even like it was all of the classes, it was, to be more specific, just one, that being statistics, as I mentioned in that semester episode. Uh, but because I would save that class for last all the time, I would always be dreading, the rest of my other classes because it's like, oh, if I finish this assignment for this class, that's easy. That's just one step closer to doing this assignment for statistics, which is a lot harder or a lot longer. And I just didn't want to put that time into it. And so it made days drag on rather than, move forward at a faster, happier pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely feel like all of my classes were stressful
Mm-hmm.
for me. It was mainly because I had to do a lot of research for a few of them.
Yeah.
So it's like I wasn't used to that and I didn't know a good way to research, which was weird because one of my classes was about research, but in my other classes I had to just kind of already know how to do that. So I was learning at the pace of my other class, my research class.
Yeah.
I think that made it more stressful because I think I mentioned this previously, but it was a 5,000 level course, right? Technically, I'm only supposed to be doing like 3,000 level, but it just fit into my schedule. So I was like, okay, cool. And like the other ones were booked already.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really realize how much you don't know until you're in that class. Because I feel like in high school, I would go into a class thinking, I don't need to know anything. Like, I'm about to learn everything about this subject.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like going into college classes, you already need to know things.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not have the previous experience that I needed for this research class.
Yeah.
So it was daunting. And that played a big part of feeling like I am not smart enough because I didn't have any previous experience.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a major factor into my stress.
I mean, that really just speaks to like the difference between high school and college and the transition between the two, especially if you didn't take like college level courses in high school. It's just that much harder. And so potentially the learning gap or even the study habits that you need to build are completely different to that of high school. And so then when you go into college and you start taking these higher level courses, all of a sudden you need to really change up how you approach school, how you approach your work. And that can be really daunting, like you said, and really stressful because you're changing so much at one time. But, your classes aren't pausing. They're still continuing, yet you still have to change the processes that you were already used to.
Yeah, it's kind of like I needed to catch up.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did.
Mm-hmm.
But was it stressful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you pulled through. You got a pretty good grade, and so like, here you are now. We're finally done with the semester and just living life, but I agree, it was very stressful.
Yeah, because I think we mentioned this, or actually, no, we didn't mention it. I did a podcast episode for my research class,
Oh
which
yeah.
we did not publish.
Yeah.
Just for my class. But in the class, we were talking about like prerequisites.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have that, like for my major. Like I really can just like pick any class that's open, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And so like other majors have that, and then they like know what they're getting into. I never have any idea like what I'm getting myself into, which is like fun, but definitely it's a little stressful.
Yeah.
But I feel like college is just, it's stressful overall.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of just like how you work with it and your mindset of it. But even if you have like the best mindset or like the best like work strategy, yeah, it can still be pretty hard.
I mean, honestly, that brings me back to a point from the article that we read. It was the first one published by the Boston University, and it was just talking about the parenting style or like the background that you have behind you going into college can really influence your college experience. And I don't mean like college experience, but like going to parties and such, but like how you look at grades, how you approach school, your work ethic, things of that matter. Like the article specifically mentioned like helicopter parenting like really overbearing parents, and how that can be a potential catalyst or a potential stressor that causes you to, dread lower grades more than you probably should, and so things become really stressful for yourself, because all of a sudden you look at like a grade like an 87, which is pretty good, and then, in your eyes now you're like, this is the worst grade ever, and all of a sudden, you start getting grades like that, or you get lower grades, or you're like, I have an 89 in the class right now. If I want to get a 90, I have to get, so and so grade. And all of a sudden, all these things come into play, and you're stressing so much about what's happening in the future that you don't give yourself time to focus on the present. And it just causes an overall decline in your mental health. And so, I think that's not entirely on the parents per se, but it's the over, how do I say it? Like the expression of like overimportance on your grades, on how you're doing in school, that the gratification that your parents give you from doing good in school, from getting good grades, you kind of almost become addicted to that, and you don't want to let your parents down. You don't want to let the people who raised you, who got you to that point, to a higher education, like you don't want to let them down by getting a grade that they've never praised you for, And so sometimes parents can be like, don't get those, but other times it's just you've never gotten that grade, and so you've never seen their reaction to like a low end B or even a C or even a D, right? And so you're just scared of what that reaction will be, and so then you in turn put that stressor on yourself, and so it's a combination of things that causes you to, bug out about a grade that's honestly not bad and probably won't affect your GPA as much as you think it will. And that's not to call anybody out, but it's just, that's something to maybe look at, like take a step back, look from the outside in. Like, is that something that you think you're going through? Is that something that you think has caused you to be more stressed out about your grades? Is it you yourself that's being hard on like your grades, on your work ethic? Or is it the way that you were raised that caused you to be like that? And that doesn't mean that you should change. That just means that maybe you should, take a different approach to it. Like still work hard and not want to get, low B's or C's or anything like that. But, be okay if it happens. Understand that we're not always going to have 100% successes, and that it's okay to fail, quote unquote, sometimes, And that's another point that the article gets into, like learning to be okay with failure, that sometimes parents or teachers, I know the big thing right now that really came to mind when I read that in the article, or when you read that to me in the article about, children or people in college, like in this day and age, are not used to failing because of the culture that we have cultivated now. Right now, there's this everybody's a winner attitude towards everything. You got science fairs, you have participation trophies, participation ribbons, in group competitions, everybody gets a prize. It's created an attitude towards things that's like, even if I don't do the best, I'm always going to get something. I'm always going to win. I'm never going to lose. So all of a sudden you just start going into real life. You start going into college, you start going into the workforce, and now people really don't care if you're second or third. They only care that you were first, They only care that you passed the course or that you did good. They're not essentially praising you for every little thing. There's no more participation trophies. And so it becomes a problem, because now we're not used to that. And that's not everybody. Like, I think in some ways I fit into that category, but in other ways I don't, because I lost a lot as a kid, like in everything. And so it was almost like I savored the wins more. But in that same regard, like I definitely was not spoiled, but I was a privileged kid. And so growing up, if I didn't get something, and it wasn't everything, but if I didn't get something that seemed normal to me, then it all of a sudden it was like I became a sore loser. I'd throw a little tantrum, I'd be upset, And so I don't know, it's a lot of different shit growing up. I lost my train of thought, honestly. But I mean, how about you? Like, do you feel like you grew up in an environment that praised winning, praised getting the highest grades, or doing the best in school, being in extracurricular activities? Like, I know that's what you did, but do you feel like you did that because of that environment, or do you feel like it was a self-driven motivation?
I definitely grew up in that environment.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like separate whether it's myself
Mm-hmm.
or if it's my family's wishes
Yeah.
in my head,
Yeah.
because it's so embedded. Because this is like going back into elementary school, but I was a patrol leader. I think that's what they were, where they like put the flag up in the morning, and then like if you're doing the crosswalk, they hold little sign
Oh
and
yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
Well, I did it because my mom did it in elementary school.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that till later. So I was like, why did I even join this? Like, how did I even find out about this?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I just joined it because she had joined it.
Mm-hmm.
In middle school, joined student council because my friends did. But I think I also just had that need to be in something
Yeah.
because I had grown up being told like I had to be in something.
Yeah.
And like get good grades. Like good grades were always like top priority. And my parents, like every now and then, they would like give me money for getting good grades. It wasn't all the time. It was just like they were excellent.
It was an incentive.
Yeah,
Like,
and
keep doing good.
it only happened like every once in a while. Like it didn't happen every time.
Mm-hmm.
It was how do I put this? I'm trying to like, it wasn't like horrible. Like I didn't feel super pressured, and I don't want it to come off like that. But I was told that school was my job.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't work. I need to get good grades because that is what I'm going there for.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I mean, I joined a lot of stuff. And again, like I don't know if like genuinely I wanted to be in those things or I felt pressured to be in something. Because I had fun being in them.
Yeah.
But why did I join them? And why did I feel the need to join every single club that was on my radar?
Yeah.
Like, no lie. If someone told me that there was a new club and I was like, oh, it fits into my schedule, I was joining it.
It's bananas. What?
Like, I don't know why. Student council, joined it freshman year. I went to one meeting and they said become, I don't know, what was it, a board member?
Yeah. Yeah, an officer. No, it was like, yeah, it was a board member, I guess. The officers were like the other, above the chairs.
Yeah, well, they had an opening. I didn't even want to like apply, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I did because I was like, oh, it's something to do. And then I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom embedded in me, again, that like if I make a commitment, I'm sticking it out.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I wasn't having fun or I didn't have like, mainly like if I didn't have fun, like I was going to stick with it.
Yeah.
No matter what. And I was going to do my job, and that was really it. So again, like it's hard to separate whether I really enjoyed it because I enjoyed all of the experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why did I join them? You know?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, same thing, like grades. There's just a lot. I was in a lot of things. So like, I'm trying to like talk about one. But I don't know. It just goes for all of them.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. And I really connect with you on the commitment thing. And I know, so recently I went to like a leadership workshop for my job. And in this workshop, we took something called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And my number one strength was responsibility. And I mean, all 5 of the top 5 strengths of the 32 did, I think, really match with myself. but the number one was responsibility. And the big thing with responsibility was that when I made a commitment, I stuck with it. And it was extremely hard for me to get out of that commitment, even if it was something that I didn't want to do. But I was also reliable, and I felt a sense of, I don't know how to say, I felt a sense of urgency when doing things. Like if I made a commitment to something, I needed to get it done. And if I didn't get it done, I tried every which way to, give a alternative solution to it, or promise them like with the bottom of my heart that like I will get it done at some point. Like if not today, it's going to get done. And that resonated with me, and I'm like, that is me. I have a strong work ethic, especially like with school. That's a different story, but I think more specifically because of the nature of it. But with a job or, anything other than school, I am like that. I tend to dive into it head first and devote a lot of personal time to things. And so I've gotten a lot better at only doing that like when it's asked of me, and not taking this extra time out of my day to do things, and understand like the difference between making a short-term commitment and not having to have it be long-term. But there's a lot of negatives to that. That idea of committing 100%. And, that was really instilled by my dad. And by all means, like I owe a lot of my responsibility and work ethic to how he raised me. But there was definitely, some bad sides to it. There was a lot of things that I didn't want to be in growing up, and a lot of things that I didn't want to stay in despite making a commitment. I wanted to leave, and he wouldn't let me. And so there's definitely a lot of years of my life that I feel like were wasted on things that I didn't want to do, and not necessarily because of him. I guess it was just my respect for him. Like, I guess as a kid, I could have rebelled and been an asshole and gotten myself out of that situation. But out of a general respect, I was like, fuck, okay, guess I'm in it, for the long haul. And a lot of these things, there was never any end to it until like a really long time, like sports, not an end to it until I graduated, Boy Scouts wasn't going to be an end to it until I graduated high school. It was a lot of these things that there was just no end anywhere near to where I'd be able to experience other things. I would never be able to take on more challenges or more activities that I wanted to do because I was stuck doing this thing that I thought I wanted to do, And now all of a sudden I have to stick with it. I mean, anytime I quit something, there was so much backlash from my dad, and it was very rough, wanting to leave things, and so now I am very good about it. I've left a lot of things that I didn't enjoy anymore. I know leaving HEB, shoot, I told my dad that, and I mean, he didn't tell me anything, but the look on his face said it all. He was extremely disappointed in me, and because he has it in his head, like, just because a good opportunity comes doesn't mean I'm having a good time. I think now he understands that, and he's expressed to that, but it's definitely, like, I don't tell him stuff when I do it anymore. Like, maybe later down the line, but only, like, after months have passed, and I already have something else that I'm doing lined up, Like, I know I stopped door dashing for a long time, but I didn't tell him until I got this most recent job at Campus Rec. And so he was constantly like, how's DoorDash? I'm like, yeah, it was good. I made bread. Like, I don't know. It's a whole thing, and I don't mean to like shit on him. I'm just saying, like, a lot of that comes from that place, right?
No, yeah. I feel like in that sense, like, my mom is like your dad. But I feel like that also, like, they come from a similar background.
Yeah.
So I feel like that plays a part in the way that they treated us and told us like how to do things and value certain things. Because I know, like, when I wanted to leave like my first 2 jobs, right? They just weren't, like, they were okay and they were good, but I wasn't having fun, and it was a lot more stressful than like a part-time job should be.
Yeah.
And every time I told my parents, like, hey, I think I'm gonna quit, right?
Yeah.
It was horrible. Like, not their reaction, like, just me getting up the nerve to tell them, like, I think I'm gonna leave. And I would not leave until I had 3 reasons to leave because I felt
That's
like I
crazy.
needed reasons, and sometimes you're just not having a good time. And that's not saying like you should quit everything you're not having a good time at, because eventually like maybe it is a good opportunity, but it really
Yeah,
depends. I think it's different for everybody, right?
definitely is.
But for me, like I needed to have, for one, I need to have a backup plan. And then I needed to have, again, like, why? Why am I doing that? Because I knew they were going to be asking questions, and I had to have all the answers to them ready. So they didn't think it was just like an off the whim
Yeah.
decision. Because I know, like, I would tell you, like, I'm going to quit. I'm tired,
Yeah.
But I would not for like a few months later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because, like, I don't know. I really drain myself out with jobs.
Yeah.
But it's because like how I grew up and what I was taught, So I'm really glad like you can just like stop and you don't feel like bad or like too bad about it.
It took a lot to get to this point, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and it's like I am not at that point yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't say no. Recently I've been getting good at that though.
Mm-hmm.
Like with my availability time. I like put times that for sure like I'm good with working, because I don't want to get like these weird hours and like my sleep schedule's off and I'm in a bad mood and we can't work out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my mental health and what I want out of life,
Yeah.
not just I have a job, let me make that commitment to it.
Yeah.
And I very much value my job and I like it, and I have friends there and I love it, right? But my mental health is not a priority. I realize that working too much and just working, not having time for you or my family or working out, like that was going to take a toll on my mental health. And it's kind of just looking at like what makes you happy and what you're going to prioritize. So like I'm getting better at that. I made out that schedule that I was good for working. I told my parents I wanted 2 days off in a row, and they were like, no. So
so much. Oh my goodness.
So I changed my schedule a little bit. It's still a work in progress, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm definitely like, if I want a time off, like I ask them ahead of time so I can get it. I don't know. I still have a hard time.
It's a different mindset. I don't know. There's something about the older generation, like our parents or even our grandparents too, that they look at commitments and it's kind of like your life has to revolve around that. And I used to think that way, but it was extremely draining. I didn't get sleep, and I was constantly angry, like angrier than I usually am on a day-to-day basis, and it was a toll. And that's especially, remember when I was having that problem with my back, where my back would get so tight that my ribs wouldn't expand, and so then I couldn't breathe by the end of the day. Sure enough, it was just so much stress that was happening. And I went to the chiropractor, and bless my chiropractor, because he would adjust me in ways that it was like the first time I'd ever breathed in months. And those breaths of air were insanely good. They felt so, like my lungs felt spicy. It was insane. And I don't know if they're listening, but we have friends who have witnessed me go through those kind of weird breathing things, like in high school when that used to happen to me, and it was rough. It was too much. It was taking a really big toll on my body because I was refusing to give myself time for anything, because I was giving my time to everybody else.
Yeah.
It's all of my commitments. And so now I think I have a pretty good work-life balance, but I think what I want to say is that to get to this point, right? I know you're saying like it's crazy how you can do that, but it took COVID-19 happening, going into honestly probably one of the biggest depressive episodes I've ever been in my life, and being not rock bottom, but being very low emotionally, performance wise, and school and the gym and everything. And so the work ethic was literally sucked out of my body, and it got to the point where I didn't care about things. So when college started, I was half-assing everything and just kind of coasting through it, really had that C's get degrees mentality, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and it was just a lot of things going on in my head at once. And there was still, even though all that was happening, there was a sense of clarity, because all of a sudden I didn't have commitments anymore. I had absolutely no commitments other than turning in assignments to pass my classes barely, and then obviously family and you. And in that way, there was almost a bittersweetness to it, a bliss, if you will. Like, I was literally probably the most depressed I'd ever been, but at the same time was the most stress-free in my life. Up to that point, that's what it felt like. And it was because I had no commitments. And so now, coming back to this point, after reevaluating my life, picking up more commitments, doing better in school, being in a generally happier mood, we're going to the gym more often, I've been making changes in my life and things have been going my way. And now I'm almost at a middle ground. Like, when I'm on shift or I'm at school, you know, I'm in the moment, in the middle of a commitment, and I'm going to do good and I'm going to work hard, but I'm also giving myself to relax, to slack off a little bit, talk to friends on shift, mess around, not focus too much on my work, not have this in and out mentality. You know, I'm excited to show up to work. I'm excited to get assignments done, to see my grade go up. And I'm excited to come home because I know that I'm not overextending myself, and I know I'm going to have free time. So then I look forward to watching YouTube. I look forward to hanging out with you, editing these podcast episodes, or figuring out new ways to make the channel grow. You know, now all of a sudden I got this different balance in life, and it's working out great for me, you know. But that's not to say that I still don't have my down moments. There's still things that I'm working on, but it's a lot better than it was. Especially like from high school to now, you know?
Yeah. No, I can see that. Okay. I'm just trying to like think of everything that you said. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm so focused like on the future, kind of like how you mentioned in previously in the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't give myself a break. Like, really. I have too many priorities, I guess. Like, for myself.
Yeah.
That I don't give myself a break. There are some days where like I feel like it's just too much. I think I mentioned this on the end of the semester episode, but like I would cry a lot because I was so stressed.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't cry as much as last semester because I wasn't working as much, so I had more time to like do my work. But the previous semester, which was the fall semester, I was crying like all the time. I was very stressed out and like I had a lot of work. It was just like too much, you know? But I mean, I've gotten better, and it's kind of like opposite of your experience where you had no commitments. Like, I still had commitments, and I had more commitments because I'd never worked and gone to school at the same time.
That's true.
So because I went through that experience, and then this semester I only worked on the weekends, so not during the week, and I had time to like work on my school. I think I valued the time that I had off more and like my personal time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm progressing and I'm growing, but like my mental health still isn't like the best.
Yeah.
Especially when it's school time, because it's like, go, go, go. Like, you need to be ahead. You need to have A's. You need like I have all these things that I need to do, and now extracurriculars, right? Which I love, but it's still a lot, you know? And I don't think, I mean, a lot of people talk about it now, which the article did mention, where it's like, oh, well, now people are being more open to mental health and like their problems and seeking like help. So previously though, like in high school, it wasn't as talked about. So like I didn't get that help. And it's because I didn't have that platform. Like, I'm still dealing with it today. Because like I mentioned, like I was in a lot of things. It wasn't just school. And it wasn't just like stuff for school. It was like outside of school and like friends, family, and like all these extracurriculars. And I didn't have a life. Like my time was for everybody else. And when the pandemic happened and I didn't have any commitments besides school, I don't think I went through like a depressive episode or like time. I don't know like the right wording for that, but I was bored.
Yeah.
Like I was really bored. And this past week I've had off because my job didn't change my schedule yet to like work during the week. So I still work on the weekends. So I had Monday through Friday off. I washed the dishes today. And I don't wash the dishes. Like I will probably do everything else but wash the dishes.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew I was like, oh, I'm really bored. Like I have to do something. But I also think that's something that comes from my mom's side, specifically my mom and my grandpa.
Yeah.
Is always work. Like they always have to be doing something. And I think there's a positive to that. But I was sitting down and I just like couldn't relax because I felt like I had to have something to do. And I think that's bad. Like that's stressful. Why can I not like sit down? You know? So it's interesting. I think like stress and anxiety and depression, they all affect people differently. Like for you felt, I mean, obviously you were going through it, but you felt, like you said, a bliss. Like for me, I think it's even worse.
Yeah.
It's just hard to tell.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Like going back to like mental health, I think there's just a lot that goes into it. I know we talked about like our backgrounds, which is probably something that plays a part in that. I think it plays a big part in that. But I think school like is mainly my stressor, like I said before.
Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to that, honestly. And like the school, work, and personal life balance, and just how hard it is to get it to a point where it is balanced. Like there's always going to be something that is getting more time or something that we want to give more time to. And more often than not, that thing that we want to give more time to is that personal life. Spending time with each other or spending time with family. Sometimes it feels like that's the thing that gets sacrificed the most in order to give time to work and to school, you know, and that's not really how it should be, but that's almost a necessity if we want to get through school successfully.
Yeah.
That definitely probably places a lot of mental stress, a lot of mental fatigue on a lot of people. I know it does that to myself. I hate missing out on family functions because I'm working or because I have a test or an assignment due that I have to absolutely get done like that night, you know, even though it might be due the next day. I know I can't put it off till the next day and, you know, engage in this function, because if not, then that is waiting until last minute. I'm going to be more stressed about that. I probably work that day as well. And so all of a sudden there's all these factors where I have to sacrifice the personal time with my family. And even if I try my absolute best to get it done as fast as I can, you know, they're already getting ready to leave by the time I'm done.
Yeah, I definitely think I sacrifice my family time more. Not on purpose. It's literally just when I work. Like my family's not home during the week, and that's mainly when I'm home. They're mainly home during the weekends. And like I'm at work for 8 hours during the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's like I do not see them. I will see them maybe for an hour in the morning, but then in the morning I have to study for my LSAT because I can't study while I'm at work, you know?
Yeah.
So then whenever I get home, like they're already getting ready to go to bed and I spend maybe 30 minutes with them. So it's like, I definitely get what you mean. Like when I don't see my family, I feel very drained and I feel tired. And it's not even like that we'll be going out or like doing something, but even just like having dinner with them or having breakfast with them, something. If I don't have like those little interactions, like I feel super drained.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
So I think like with mental health, like I said, a lot of things come into play, and for everybody it's different, because some people like they just don't like seeing their family, or like they don't have a good relationship with them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, like they value their friends more. And like everybody's different. Or some people love going to work, and if they don't go to work, like they feel bad.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I do feel bad when I enjoy the job. I do feel bad not going in because I do look at it that way. Like I made a commitment, I have to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's a lot, and a lot of this is kind of stemming from our own personal beliefs, what we value,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I guess another thing that I kind of wanted to circle back to before we get to the end of this episode, in reference to that Boston University article, it was talking about, was it that article or was the other one talking about what do schools need to offer?
Oh, yeah. It was actually a different article. Let me see.
It was the second one, right?
Yeah. It's called Under Pressure, Inside the College Mental Health Crisis. Yes, it is this one.
Okay.
The one where it talks about what do schools really owe you?
Yeah.
Regarding mental health, like do they owe you any care?
Yeah, because, I mean, you look at higher education, and even though it is an option, it's not something that you have to do. It feels that way, right? Because the importance of a college degree is so high in the United States. It's like especially with how expensive everything is, which that's a whole nother can of worms that probably causes anxiety and stress in college teens, is everything is so expensive, and we're worried that, are we going to be able to get a job that's going to pay well enough? So now not only are we stressed because we have to go to college, because without a college degree, we're not going to get a job that's going to pay well enough to support us in this extremely expensive America that we live in now, right? But now we're worried too, like, is my degree going to land me a job that's even going to pay for, the lifestyle that I want to live, right? And, all of a sudden there's all these worries coming into play. And so a lot of people are like, don't get a job just for the money. Well, it's kind of like,
we're kind of out of that option.
Like, I can't fucking go and pursue my dream of making jelly beans. That's not that's not my dream. That was a random ass example I gave. But that's kind of like, I can't pursue things without giving up a certain lifestyle, without making a lot of sacrifices. And to people who kind of have like this, they'll watch those motivational videos, those alpha male, sigma male videos talking about like, you got to be prepared to well, I don't want to fucking sacrifice shit sometimes, man. Sometimes I want to live a lifestyle that I know a certain amount of income is needed to produce said lifestyle. And so I'm not willing to sacrifice more years of my life than I really need to get to that point. And so I'm not saying that I'm not hating the idea of what I'm trying to get into as a career, but by no means is it like the dream job of my life. I don't really have a dream job, but it's kind of like, it's not the thing that I'm like, damn, like I've always wanted to be a digital marketing SEO specialist. No, bro, like no kid is going to, what do you want to be when you grow up? A digital marketing SEO specialist? No. I think when I was a kid, I wanted to be a plumber. Not like a plumber that fixes toilets. I mean like a plumber from Ben 10, a fucking space police person. I don't know. They called them plumbers. It was weird, but that's what I wanted to be when I was a kid. I remember I wanted to be working with Ben 10, the kid that could transform into aliens. And I was like, I want to be his sidekick. That was my dream.
Yeah, I don't think I wanted to be anything.
Yeah?
Yeah. And I was just chilling, going day by day. Like, what's going to bring this?
I wanted to be a lot of things.
No, I never had like that dream. That one thing where like, if I could do it, I was going to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm envious of people who have that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just don't.
No, I agree. Like, I definitely settled for what I'm doing. And I think that's the majority of college students, which is also another factor.
And probably why they're stressed.
For why they're stressed. Like, they've settled on this path like this huge thing in life that's going to determine what they're going to do for the rest of their life. So all this, I mean, not exactly. Some degrees are more lenient than others in what you can apply it to, you know, for certain jobs, but it's kind of like, you know, whatever your focus is might not give you as much leeway as maybe you want. And so you don't have the option to switch unless you go back to school or unless you get certifications. And, you know, that's just more money, that's more time. And I know there was something I saw somewhere, or maybe somebody told me, but it was kind of like time is going to keep going forward. And whether or not you choose to pursue something or not, doesn't matter. That time that you would have spent is going to have already passed. Was that you?
Yeah,
That
I
was
told
you.
you in the car.
Yeah, and so I resonate with that and I understand that, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, 4 years of my life is a good chunk. Do I want to devote it to getting an entirely new bachelor's degree, or do I want to devote a certain amount of time to another specific type of degree or certification? Like, you have to look at, is it worth it to you?
No, yeah. And when I was telling you that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you completely wanted to change like your career, like if this was your passion, like you're 30 years old, which isn't old. Just
Yeah.
want to say that. Like if you're 30 years old and you're like, I do not want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's like no other position for you to do with your degree.
Yeah.
And you're miserable. Like you're going to be miserable those 4 years, whether you like it or not. But you could be working towards something else, towards your passion, towards your happiness for 4 years.
Yeah.
Rather than just, you're going to be stuck if you don't.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that I was looking at it. But it definitely is like, it depends, you know?
I think it's kind of, you have to think about like, there's certain things that like, if you pursue passions, it's not always going to work out and become this billionaire idea or billionaire company.
No, yeah,
Like more
yeah.
often than not, like it's going to be a little bit more of a grind. Like you have to be ready to make less than if you would graduate with a college degree or anything like that. So if your dream is making wooden sandals for women with little feet, by all means pursue it.
And I will buy the sandals.
But be prepared to not make a lot, you know, and you got to pour a lot into it if you want to get a lot out of it, you know. And I mean, the same thing, I guess that same analogy could be used for like school. You're pouring a lot of money and time into it, but the, you know, expected outcome is to get a lot out of it, get a high paying job and pay off whatever debt you have. And then, you know, just continue to save money and live a decent life.
Okay, well, let me ask you real quick, because we kind of went away from the little subtopic. Do you think that, you know, universities kind of like owe you any care for mental health?
So I don't think personally, I don't think they owe students like things like that. But it's kind of like you run a facility like that and it almost becomes a necessity. So I don't think, obviously by law they don't owe it, but it's kind of like morally they owe it, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I was thinking the same thing morally.
yeah, like the like the Title IX office, you know, I don't know like the laws with all that, but like
I think they have to.
they have to now, right? But you know, before it was more of a moral issue, like before it became like something in effect, like a resource that was widely available, that was talked about frequently. Like now when you first register for college, they have like a whole module about the Title IX office and the resources that it offers and things like that. And so I know like a lot of my professors, as well as like in the syllabuses, UTSA provides documentation that all of the professors need to put at the end of their syllabus.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And one of the pages is about, you know, if you're experiencing mental health issues, this is the number that you can call. This is the office you can visit. And so, you know, I never saw that before in things like that, you know. And so it shows that there is a focus on it. And I think they realize that it is a big issue. But do I think they owe it to us? No, but I'm glad that they offer it, you know.
Well, honestly, I think that they do.
Yeah.
You know, mental health is such a big problem, especially like in America.
Yeah.
And I think that they should have the resources for you. Just because, like we were talking about before we recorded the episode, like school is a catalyst to a lot of mental health problems. And it's like when you're dealing with all these people, I think it's important to have that, at least morally.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want that. For one, I don't think anyone wants on their conscience that, I don't know, like let's say the dean of a school, he didn't offer any type of mental health facilities. There's no care. There's not even a website, like on their school website, of where to get help, you know, and a bunch of kids die, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of like on the school now, because they didn't have any resources for the kids.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, honestly, like, not all of it is on the school. But, like, let's say there was just, like, a website or a phone number to call. Like, that could have helped one student.
Yeah, so it's more about they're not responsible for whether or not the student takes advantage of those responsibilities, but as a university who has a large amount of students that are going through some sort of mental health issue, like it is their responsibility to provide the resources.
Yeah, I'm not saying, like, they push the student to go to, you know, to, like, these counseling sessions.
But that they let them know that it's available.
Yeah, at least having some sort, I don't know, not like a place, but even if it's just on the website,
Yeah.
like who to call or how to get help, or
Yeah.
ask yourself like these questions. I don't know. Like, there's just a bunch of things that the school can do that can at least help the student, even just realize that they're going through something, because sometimes students are in denial.
Yeah. And I mean, that was brought up in the article too, like how your university now, more often than not, is going to have the most expansive amount of resources that are readily available for you when it comes to mental health issues, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to seek out some clinic or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
outside of school.
Because sometimes it's harder for students outside of school to go. You
Yeah.
know, they were talking about just like relationships with past physicians or just like counselors. You know, maybe they've had like bad experiences, but at least like the school has different resources for them.
Yeah. And especially too, it's helpful for like those out of state students or like out of city students who are at a university away from home, who don't have access to these facilities that would otherwise require insurance. You know, all of a sudden now, because you're a student here at this university, you can go to this office that's a walk away.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You know, a bunch of students from St. Mary's, they're not even from the United States. You know, they're from out of the country. And they
Yeah.
don't have the same insurance. So it's kind of like, that's why I think it's important for the schools to provide some type of resource.
You know what? Now I agree with you.
Because
I agree with that point. Yeah.
like, if you're going to have people like international students who don't
Yeah.
have insurance, like you have to give them something. You can't just leave them to fend for themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the responsibility of a place like a university to provide those resources, but it is definitely. Oh my gosh, sorry. I was trying to talk and I like burped and it sounded weird. But it is definitely up to the students on whether or not they take advantage of those resources.
Yeah, I just think it's important to have it morally. You know, like you said, it's not a law, but
I mean, arguably like morally and ethically. Like, is it ethically wrong to know that you have these things going on at your campus and not give the resources to help your students, you know?
preach. Yeah.
So crazy shit. I don't know. We got into a lot this episode, honestly. And I don't even feel like, what are we at right now? We're like 53 minutes. Bananas.
Yeah, that's a long time. Did not feel like that at all.
Pretty solid episode, honestly. I don't mean to like thing, but like,
Babe. Gosh, that was so graphic. I'm sorry.
I'll censor that.
No, yeah. I don't know. It was interesting,
Yeah.
you know, to even just like reflect on our own lives. Not gonna lie, like I was having a hard time. Like, what was I in high school? Like, high school just totally like blanked a little bit.
Yeah.
But no,
Um,
yeah.
That was pretty crazy. Well, I guess let's close it out. Firstly, we'll link all relevant articles. So the two articles that we referenced throughout this episode.
Yeah, I also looked at a study which we can link as well.
Oh yeah, so we'll put
'Cause
that.
I didn't show that one to you, but I sent it to you like a week ago.
Yeah, so we'll throw that in the show notes so y'all can take a look at it for yourselves. And then be sure to follow us at Live with Jay and Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Also, check out our art on YouTube now. Julian just finished making it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's also on our Twitter.
Yes, our Twitter header as well as YouTube and our Facebook header. Be sure to check those out. Yeah, we decided because, I don't know, they were all different. We didn't have channel art, so now our YouTube channel looks a little more official. We have gained 2 subscribers in the past month, so shout out to y'all.
Yes, thank you. Claps
Yes,
all around.
I know, thank you. We're at 4 subscribers now, guys. Let's go. Be sure to show some love to the podcast on YouTube. That's definitely what we're lacking the most. But we've had an insane amount of listeners this past month. We're already at almost 1,200 listeners.
Oh my gosh.
So thank y'all for tuning in.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see these numbers, so when you tell me, I actually freak out a little bit.
Really?
Yes, like that's a lot of people. That's a lot of listeners.
Bananas, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's pretty cool. Thank y'all for listening. Really appreciate it. But in all seriousness though, we discussed a lot and we talked a lot about mental health. And like, if you feel like you're experiencing any mental health issues, like reach out to somebody that you trust. Or even in the show notes, I'll post some resources that y'all can definitely check out if you feel like you're struggling and don't have an outlet to, talk about these things. But, other than that, is there anything else that you want to add before we close out the episode?
No.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.